This week, we make this sound like an 18-wheeler. I'm shocked myself. This is my 2002 daily driver diesel Jetta. I don't much care for the way it looks. I don't much care for anything else on the car other than what's under that hood right there. So this is the 1.9 liter ALH turbo diesel. The best way to put it is this is basically the 12 valve Cummins of cars. I mean, this is like the engine you want, the best fuel economy, the dumbest down, easiest to swap into something else without having a lot of extra complicated stuff going into it. So with that being said, I bought this whole car a couple months back. I was about to park the station wagon so that way I could start working on it and building that engine and everything for it. And I was collecting parts and everything. I said, well, I'd like to pick up a little fuel saver while I park that car up for a little while. So I found this one. I bought it for $2,500. I've had to put a little bit of money into it, but I don't care. The front suspension's a little worn out. Obviously, it's got a crappy primer paint job. I don't care about any of that stuff. All I care about is that super clean engine right there. The car's got a lot of miles. I know these engines will do good for a long time if treated well. This one, the engine does great. I don't see any burning oil, no white smoke or anything like that. It's been already weight reducted. EPA approved weight reducted. Doesn't really have any leaks or anything other than there's something going on with the turbo of the car. This pipe, I just put it on here. It had a different one on here. The kid who put it together put the wrong size part on it. He was able to get 2 bolts to line up. Third bolt didn't fit, so he had some silicone in there and it was blowing oil out past all over everything in the engine because our turbo's going out. And I know our turbo's going out because as I'm driving to work, I'll feel, you'll stop hearing turbo noise and you'll feel it lag down. I'm not sure what's going on internal. I just know our turbo is leaving. So I picked up a turbo cartridge because everything inside of there, I'm pretty well betting is good to go because the car still runs and drives great down the road. You're just having exhaust housing and then the inlet housing on your turbo. So all we're doing here is replacing just the center section with the turbine and everything that you need. This is inlet, this is exhaust. I can tell you that because this is metal and this is aluminum. Sorry, this is steel or cast. I'm not sure which one. It's either steel or cast, and that one's aluminum. But I bought this from Max Peating Rods. On the Volkswagen forums, everybody says that this is like a really, really good kit. It's a super cheap setup to do. Apparently they've been around since 2006. I didn't know that. They sell all kinds of stuff. I don't know why they waste their money sending any of these things. Comes with instructions, all of your gaskets and everything you're gonna need. All right, let me get into it. I'm gonna set y'all up where y'all can try to watch it. I know this isn't hot rod stuff, which is what we normally work on, but you know, the daily drivers need work too. And also the main reason why I'm putting it on here is the fact that this engine is eventually gonna go into one of our other projects. I really don't know which one it is. I don't know if I'll end up buying another vehicle to put it in, but I want to take this car and as many parts out of it I can keep, turn the engine back straight instead of the sideways stuff, turn it back straight, put a American transmission behind it. I don't know if it'd be Chevrolet or Ford or what it's gonna go in yet, but put a transmission behind it, put it in some kind of classic something, and have a cool back and forth to work driving car with a good little diesel in it that I'm saving fuel on and everything still.
I'm not gonna lie, this thing gets a lot of attention. This car gets just as much attention as some of my old cars. I feel like every day I drive, I get pictures taken of it. I don't know if it's just because they're laughing at it or what, which, I mean, I would laugh at it. But, man, I get out of the car at the gas station, everybody's like, man, that thing is cool. I got other cool stuff. To me, this one's nothing. So, it does draw attention. It does draw eyes. The only thing I'm worried about saving on it is the engine. I'll throw the whole rest of the car away. I don't really care about it. But I want to get this engine up to where I'm extremely, extremely happy with it. It runs really good right now. But I think I want to put bigger injector nozzles in it. I've been watching for leaks, trying to see if there's anything like that I need to repair. Trying to get everything dialed in as much as I can before we move forward. Oh, by the way, I guess for starting on this, I figured the only way I'm gonna get going on it is if I just get going. So here we are. I just learned a valuable lesson. Always keep the camera rolling. Let me show you what happened. Everything's wet because I popped off this hose that had a great deal of pressure. I'm talking spraying the backside of this. See, I mean, everything's soaked. It's all over the firewall. It's still running out of there. I was just loosening this real quick to see if maybe I could relieve a little bit of the pressure. I don't remember seeing anything about a coolant line in some of the videos I watched, so I'm probably gonna go ahead and bolt that back together, pretend that didn't happen. Just gonna slip that right back down on, and we'll reconnect that, and we'll act like we didn't just lose about a cup and a half of high pressured coolant. Next step is to pull these two bolts out of here, those two out of there, which are the other end of that pipe. There's two there and two there. Pull that off. As you can tell, it's really tight to get down in there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that out real fast. We're gonna use my new light. I say new, I've actually had this light for a long time. I just couldn't find where it was. It was at the shop somewhere, and that's all I knew. It's at the shop somewhere. But I finally found it. now that all that intake is out of here, next we're gonna take this turbo downpipe out, which is the beginning of your exhaust. You got 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3. Pull those off. Just gonna leave this laying here in the car while I'm gonna do that. I believe I've gotta go from underneath and pull this intercooler pipe off of the turbo right there. Pull that off real quick. Let me get those 2 done, and then after that I'm gonna probably get this line off of here. I believe this is your oil feed line into the turbo, I believe. But regardless, let me get that line off of there. It's right here. Already had to pull the nut off of that while I was doing everything else to get a little bit of flex out of this. So pull that off. Pull that bolt right there, and that whole line is free. Then the 3 nuts on the back side of that, pull the downpipe off, and then after that we'll come back, talk to y'all, but then we should be ready to start pulling that turbo out of there. All right, so there she is. Turbo is out. So now, what I'm gonna do is take the outer housing off, inner housing. That should be way easier. Yeah, she's trashed. Anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the input housing off. I don't know what the name of this is. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the intake side off and pull the center guts out. And then I'm gonna take this piece and this piece, the intake, that piece and that piece, all to my shop and clean them in my parts cleaner and do all that stuff, and then let it dry, and we can start assembly on all of this. So let me get this disassembled real fast. Also, I need to take that tire to the shop so I can plug and patch it in my tire machine. So let me get this out, get that tire off, get the pieces I need, and we'll load up to go to the shop. So we came up here to the shop. I've got my wife in here cleaning the intake, getting that all cleaned up, and then whenever she's done with that one, I've also got the intake side of the turbo here that I need to go into the cleaner. Also, like this piece of rubber needs to go in and get cleaned. Yeah, that's it. So this one, maybe the vacuum port on here as well, but need to get that stuff clean. But also while we're here, the only thing are we gonna do is replace the turbo in this and clean all this up. Also, I'm gonna put this through the blaster. Just get a nice fresh coat on there and everything. It's gonna rust back up, but I'll blast it and shoot it with some of my exhaust paint, reshoot it black. But not only that, I'm gonna see what we can do about building this stuff new. So we know we're gonna have to get an adapter because this is weedy bitty guy right there. And this exhaust pipe is not. So we know we gotta get an adapter for that, or a series of adapters. to make that work. But what about making all this stuff from scratch and making it out of metal? There, 90, straight. Let me see what I can come up with. From the looks of it, I'll be able to take this piece, and this piece, ran to the store real quick and picked up a reducer that will go to the end right here and bring us down to the size we need here. And then my wife has the rubber coupling that goes right here on the end of the turbo for these two, and they're also tapered as well. So everything here I should be able to piece together an intake, and then for no money, literally I had to return a part, and it was $1.08 is how much I had to put into this. And between doing all of that, we can put together a cold air intake for free out of all of my used exhaust parts that we have laying around. Full stainless. I have a stainless intake. Literally have no money into it. Just putting together something out of what we got laying around. That's besides the point. Move all this aside. Now, let's dig into this turbo. I'll go ahead and put y'all on time lapse and I'll tear this all apart. It was a little tricky to get everything to line up down in here, but we got the actuator lined up now and free spinning turbine that doesn't touch anything, which with the old one, see it doesn't have a full free spin. It's binding up somewhere internally and it's coming to a stop, whereas this one will keep spinning. The bearing inside of this one's better than the bearing inside of this one, which is the problem that we're having with this one. So now I'll go ahead and get this bolted down, and then I can switch over the oil port, and I need to put the actuator on, and then I can put the inlet side on. Turbo rebuilt, so that's ready to go back on the car. We've got the bottom intercooler pipe cleaned up, we've got the intake cleaned up right here, and we've got this one as a reference for what we're going to do on all the aluminum or stainless piping to try to make us an intake. So I'm going to take the stainless piping home with us, these pieces home, and then tomorrow, after I get all this installed, I can mock it all up, mark it, bring it back up here to the shop, weld all that stuff together, go back and put it on the car. So I'm going to load all this stuff up and we'll take it home right after I repair those two tires over there. Welcome back. Day 2 of getting this turbo put on the car. I'm an idiot. I'll own it. I don't know what it is about the internet, and whenever you say something, stuff just starts popping up about it. I haven't done any looking up on the turbo stuff of these cars. And last night there was about 7 videos on YouTube that popped up about doing the turbo on this car. And everybody was saying exactly what my turbo was doing, that I would take off, I would start to shift, and as it would go to shift, the turbo would go silent, you would lose power, it'd go into basically limp mode. You could push the clutch in, kill the car, turn it back on, let the clutch out, boom, boom, come back on, and turbo's good again. Well, apparently what that is doing, what's causing that, is over boosting. So yes, the turbo was actually, the other turbo impeller wheel was starting to get slop in it, so it was starting to go out slightly, but it probably wasn't completely ready to be replaced. I probably could have got some more miles out of it, but it's fine. We're here, we're doing it anyway. But what I read was the solution was the exhaust side of the housing is getting built up with soot from it being diesel. So what I need to do is actually take this all back apart and clean all those veins and everything inside of the turbo. I didn't clean those, honestly, because whenever I looked at it, I was like, man, that's a lot of little pieces and it's gonna be really hard to put it all back together. So I opted to not to, and come to find out that's gonna be my problem. So I slept on it overnight and I thought about it while I was in church, if I was gonna take it back apart, if I'm just gonna run it and see what happens. But you know what? Look at this, we're day 2 into this project and I could probably get it all back together in a couple hours, but let's just go ahead and do this now. I'm gonna take it back to my shop. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm gonna take it up there, and while it's apart, I'm gonna blast this side, which is why I didn't blast it yesterday. I was like, man, there's a lot of little pieces in there. I don't want to have to pull all that stuff out to blast this and everything. It was late and I was just trying to get done. Of course, that's what bites you in the butt, is trying to go around a problem. So I'll own it. I did something wrong. I messed up. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna go ahead and put the turbo in the car, just tighten up 2 bolts, get it into place, and let's look at what we got to do to build our intake like we were talking about. Because if I'm going to have to go to the shop anyway and do all that, let's just do it all in one shot. So I'm going to go ahead and get this set in here, and then we'll figure out what we got to do to build our intake. Now that we got the actual turbine part of the turbo opened up and all this off, now we can get down here to the veins of the turbo. So as you can see, it's still dirty. This, like I said, this was my fault. I didn't realize that this was something that needed to be done for this specific turbo. Like, this is what was causing my issues. But so you pull these little pins out and pull the wheels off. Now you can pull this ring out. You got 3 star bit bolts in here. Pull these out. Now I just need to make sure that I remember this bolt right here, which I'm going to go ahead and put a mark. This bolt and that pin, because if you notice next to all these, there's no other holes. Next to that pin, that's where the alignment dowel right there drops in. So you know where that's going to go during reassembly. So now we're going to pull the vanes out. Grab these 3 little spacers out of here. Now I can clean this and clean this. So this one, I'm probably just going to go over the wire wheel, and I will probably go ahead and just put it in my blaster, blast all this, but not do the inside of here. Just blast on the outside, and then make sure I clean this up on the inside real good. Make sure you get all the dust and everything out of it. But these, I'll just take them on a ride on the wire wheel, get it all cleaned up, and then we'll move forward from there. So I'm gonna clean this and we'll blast this. So here we go, making the intake. I'll show y'all what we did as I go through it. But this piece is gonna go into the turbo, so it's just straight. That's all it needs to be. Just make sure that that is straight into there. And that's gonna come off the turbo. It doesn't matter if it's clocked any direction, because straight out of there is all that matters. So let me get this tacked into place. Right after I turn the welding machine on. Now, what I'm also going to do is put 4 little tacks on the end of this, so whenever you put the clamp on, the clamp can't back off. So this piece is tacked up. So the next piece to go on is going to be this one. And the way I have it set up is, once you get it fitted, just like that, you line your marks up, and that's exactly how it goes in the car. So this piece is all fitted up. Now, for this one, doing the same thing. I want to make sure the marks are lined up here, and also that you don't see, because if there's a gap like that and that line doesn't butt right up to here, and it's not correct. So you want the line to be in. Also, you can see if you hold it at a different angle, it'll throw everything off. So you want to make sure everything is lined up perfect. And that right there is how I had it. So we got this piece that goes in the car. We know it's going to be cocked like that out of the turbo. And this was pretty much perfectly flat. Y'all might have saw whenever we were in the car, what I was wanting was 8 inches from the end of this. It's going to make another 45 going back towards the original airbox spot. So if I hold this flat on how I want it, measure out 8 inches. All right, so that right there is right at 8 inches. So I'm going to flip it, mark it. Now I just need to cut that off. I can slip it in here, weld it, and then at the house we'll figure out how far back this needs to be cut so we can put our air intake on the end of that. So let me go ahead and get that cut real quick. All right, so there we go. Now I can burn this all out, get it welded, and then we'll take it home, assemble it in the car, and we can figure out where this needs to be cut to hang the map sensor, or not map sensor, the mass airflow map sensor, and then the air cleaner and everything off the end. So let me go ahead and get all this welded out real fast, and then the turbo is dry and I can go ahead and start assembling that. Yeah, I said dry, I painted it. I'm a child and I can't leave anything alone. Well, y'all watch me take it apart. Y'all don't need to watch me put it back together, do you? So I'm gonna run through it. I'm gonna set y'all up where we can just time lapse and run with it until we get to some more making on the intake. Once we get to that, I'll slow down, show you what we're gonna do, because it's a little bit more. I held it in there and kind of mocked it up to see how I liked it. It looks like it's gonna work really good, but like I said, I mocked it up into place. I didn't even have the turbo sitting in there. I just kind of referenced where I see a couple of things sitting and said, this looks like it's gonna be where it's sitting. So now I need to throw the turbo on, bolt it down, bolt it back to the exhaust, run the, where's it at? Run our intercooler pipe from the intercooler up here back over to the turbo. So I'll sit that right there. There's a bolt that goes in the back of the head or back of the block, bolting the turbo on, run the oil cooling line, and then all the turbo stuff is done. Then we can look at the intake, and once that's done, we look at that, figure out how everything's gonna land. Then we can finalize everything, putting the actual air intake on the car on, and tying in our upper intercooler line, and calling this video done and go for a drive. So let me get all of the turbo stuff in, and I'll talk to y'all in a minute. So here we go with the intake. Just test fit the intake, make sure it's happy. Oh yeah, perfect. Perfect. I want to cut it right there, so I'll pop it back out of the car, cut that off, clean that end up. I actually think I need to run and go pick up another one of these silicone boots and everything, but I'll do that here in a minute, because right now we can get all this mounted. This can be the last thing we come back to at the end. So let me pop this out of here, cut that up. We'll go ahead, get this set back in. Oh, one more thing. Where that's gonna land. So this plug is gonna go into the top of there, and that needs to go in there. I already bought the grommet and already got the grommet. I just need to figure out where I was gonna put it. So we'll do that. So next up, we're gonna ride the struggle bus. Just like my words, we're gonna ride the struggle bus for a minute, and we're gonna put the intake back on here on the backside. We got our tapered bottom with retaining stuff up top. We got our new line put inside with a grommet around it. Just took a burr bit, opened it up until we got the right size hole. Put the grommet in it, slid it in. Nice snug fit. It's not going anywhere, but it's also not too tight where I can remove it if I need to. So now I'll slide this into the car. Oh, and we got our second hose clamp sitting down on the bottom. So once I get it down there, I can pop it on and go underneath and tighten up the hose clamp. So there we go, fully attached. I just had to run and go pick up that one. Clamp right there. Everything is all clamped down, good to go. It has a double spacer. It's got a little rubber gasket that goes on the inside, but that's all set up. That's good. Way bigger intake. than factory, and turbo is now cleaned and brand new. We now have the correct emissions intact pieces we needed. We have, did you do a project right if you don't have a stack of parts that don't go back on the car? With that being said, let's try to fire it up and see how this goes. Oh, and I mean, I'm very proud of this intake. For as no money into it as we are, this used to attach to that bolt, and there was one down low on the rubber, or on the plastic intake. So I just put a hose clamp all the way around that to keep it steady. No problem there. All of our factory connections and all that stuff are all running back into the pipe just like normal. I'm gonna set y'all up here. Don't really hear it through this end like I was thinking it would. Okay. Y'all are not gonna believe this. So, I don't know if you ever heard an ALH turbo before, but I'll give you a little taste. This is how it sounds. So you hear that, right? Now, y'all listen to the intake. Man, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. Just making a stainless intake. Just a stainless intake, just using my time and that extreme noise that it makes now. I mean, it sounds like a freaking 18-wheeler from the driver's seat. From the outside, it sounds like everything else you hear with a turbo. But from the driver's seat, the way it comes in, it sounds like a turbo, or sounds like a big rig. But I'm super happy with that. We're going to be done for this car for a while. I don't plan on doing anything else other than I might make those intercooler pipes that are plastic on the car. I might make those out of metal. Besides that, all I'm doing here is preserving this engine. I'm not trying to do anything crazy. The only reason why I spent some time on it this week was to get y'all a little bit acquainted with this engine, because this is the one I want to use moving forward on some of the project. I'd have drove it around a little bit more, but as you can see by the car being soaked and wet, a storm just barreled in on us. It's still pouring down outside right now. But I was able to get like 2 quick videos. I think I can only use 1 out of the 2. I mean, dude, I'm super impressed with that. I'd like to make those other 2 little pieces. Out of doing that whole thing, after making the turbo and all that stuff, I think between everything involved, including using my own exhaust stuff that I already had sitting around and going and buying 2 little things, I think the turbo is like $150. The brand new one. It turned out I didn't even need it. I just need to clean it. But hey, it's rebuilt. It's fresh. It's brand new. I don't have to worry about it. Now there's a brand new turbo on this engine moving forward for this engine into some other project. The intake is cleaned up, or the actual intake for the engine has been gone through, cleaned up. Everything I could touch has been touched on this go around. The only thing left to do to this car is drive it and keep it going good until I go to pull the engine out and put it in something else. The only other thing I think I want to do is put bigger injectors in it, literally just to make it smoke more. And the reason why to make it smoke more is because you're going to put this engine in something else later on, and you just want the cool factor. I mean, yeah, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, black smoke's not cool." Yeah, but it's cool whenever it's coming out of the hood of like a '60s model Mustang or like a old Ford Falcon or something random that you wouldn't expect it. So my plan is to put the bigger injectors in it, whatever, so that way it'll go that route. Y'all tell me what kind of project y'all want to see this engine in. We don't know, but I dang sure wasn't expecting that loud 18-wheeler turbo sound out of it, and I really want to make those other pipes, which I can do that without showing y'all. Y'all tell me if y'all want to see it or not, and that'll be it. See y'all next week. Next week we're going to be back to regularly scheduled hot rodding. So y'all have a good one.